Hi, it's Alison from Blue Cat Sewing, and today I'm going to show you how to make one of these. It's a crossbody, wearable peg bag. Here's how it works. It doesn't matter if you want to wear it on the left or the right, as there's 2 pockets and it will fit loads of clothespins inside. There's also an adjustable strap, so it should fit absolutely anybody. I'll put the link here so that you can download the pattern, but here's the tutorial to take you through it. The first thing to do is to take the main fabric pieces, place them right sides together and pin along the bottom edge and the side seams. And then we're going to sew down those side seams and all along the bottom and up the other side seam. Because you've pinned at right angles, that means that you can sew over the pins without breaking a needle. But if you want to take the pins out as you go, you can also do that. I just line up the edge of my foot, my machine sewing foot, with the edge of the fabric, which is about 7 mils, about 1/4 of an inch. And then we do the same with the lining, but there's a slight difference here in that we're going to leave a gap at the bottom. So I always put a pin where the gap is going to start and end along the bottom. You'll see just there. So we sew down the sides and along the bottom, but only up to that pin. And then we stop sewing, reverse stitch just to secure, and then start again at the end of the gap. The gap is about 20 centimetres, about 8 inches. And then cut diagonally across the corners on your lining and on the main fabric. Be careful not to cut the stitches. And then we turn through the main fabric to the right side. Now we need to get into those corners with something pointy, but not too pointy. I've got some blunt-ended scissors that I use, but you can get specific turning tools, little plastic turning tools to do this. And then once you've turned that through, just press along those 3 edges that you've sewn to get a nice finish. And then tuck it inside the lining fabric. Then we need to start pinning it together. I always start at the front, or that short edge, get that lined up. Again, pinning at right angles. And then I do the long back edge. I did find once when I first started making these that if I started pinning at some random place, especially along the curve, I found it really difficult to get everything lined up. So if you do it in this way and just making sure everything's lined up as you go, then you shouldn't have any problems. When we get to the side seam, it's really important to get the seams lined up correctly. And you need the seam that you've sewn, that side seam needs to point towards the curved area. If you have it pointing towards the back, when you turn it through, you'll get a lump on your finished bag. So the same thing on this side, make sure that those seams from the lining and from the main fabric all point towards the curved side. And then we're going to start sewing again. We're going to start from the centre back along that straight edge right in the middle. Go along there. Down the side seams. And when you get to that corner, just make sure that nothing's tucked inside and you've got it all lying flat and those seams pointing towards the curved part of the bag. Keep that curved edge flat. It's quite easy to stretch that if you pull on it, but just keep it flat and it will be fine. Take pins out if they get in the way. You can't always sew over a pin. If it's not at right angles, it's not going to work. And then the last bit along the top edge to meet the stitching where you started. And then trim these 4 corners at the top. Again, being careful not to trim your stitches. And then you don't have to, but you can trim down all these seams if you like. It just gives a neater finish. When you get to this corner, that's where you probably need to find some big strong scissors like I've got here, because you need to cut right into that corner. Again, being careful not to cut your stitches, but that's going to give you a really good finish. And do the same on the other side. Now here's where we turn it all through. So through the gap in the lining, pull the main fabric through and just straighten it all out. Pull the corners out and get your scissors, your blunt-ended scissors or whatever you're using to get a good corner, and poke into those top corners. And now we need to close the gap in the lining. So just pull it apart and you should get a nice edge. Press that and pop some pins in to hold it together while you sew. So just a straight line of stitching all across the bottom of the lining, removing the pins as you go. Once that's done, you can tuck the lining inside, straighten it all out and give it a press. So you need to press the top edges, which you can do while it's flat. But when it comes to doing the side seams and the curves, the best way of doing this is to put the bag on the end of your ironing board, and then you can wrap the bag around the ironing board. This is the easiest way. You can see there how I've got a good corner because of all the trimming and the cutting that I did there, and because it's facing the front, the curved side of the bag. Now we're onto the strap. So get the small part of the strap, the shorter end, and turn that under about 1 centimetre and give it a press at both ends. And then get your slider and push that through and just pop a pin in place to hold it. Now we're going to do the same with the long strap. So turn that under again about 1 centimetre on each end. And then take your buckle and we're going to feed one end into the buckle. So it goes in one side, out the other side, so that it's around the middle bar. And then turn the end in and fold it down and pop a pin in so that you're ready to sew. So you can see I've removed the pin, don't need it now, I'm at the machine. And we're going to sew 2 rows of stitching, again securing each end of the stitching with a reverse stitch. So one end near the folded edge, and then just move it over so that you're a little bit further away. 2 rows of stitching will mean it's secure. Once you've done the side with the buckle, then move on to the strap that's got the slider on and do exactly the same. So 2 rows of stitching. And then we need to put these straps together. So if you get the short strap with the turning side face down, and then feed the long strap upwards through the slider and into the buckle, going in one end and out the other end, is where you'll see that all the wrong side of the strap is on the wrong side. So the turnings are on the inside, hidden by the strap where the buckle is. Take the short end of the strap and take a pin and mark 15 centimetres from the folded edge, which is 6 inches. We're just going to put a pin there to mark it, because that's where we're going to place the strap at the top of the bag. I always do it on this side of the bag, on the left side, but it doesn't matter, you can put it on the right. So then place pins all the way down the length of that strap at right angles so that you can sew on them. When you get to the bottom, just turn that folded edge under and pin in place. Now we're going to sew, starting at the top of the bag, all the way down and around the bottom, being careful not to tuck any fabric in that shouldn't be there to keep everything flat. And then back up the other side with a reverse stitch again to secure. Do exactly the same with the long end of the strap, placing a pin 15 centimetres or 6 inches from the folded edge, and then pinning that in place at the other end of the bag. I've got a tiny tuck here in the lining, which, if you smooth it out as best as you can, won't show with this strap on top. So don't worry too much if you have a little tuck. And stitch it in exactly the same way as you did the first end of the strap. Now all we need to do is to stitch along the top. So pin the short end in place in the middle and start sewing from one end of the bag going over the strap up to the middle. Here I just stop, put my needle into the fabric and just adjust it because it always wants to rock up there and I get a little tuck. So just go carefully and you'll get a nice finish. All along the edge and going over the second side of the strap. And that's it. I hope you liked making it. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and happy sewing. I'll see you on the next one.